Yeah. Thanks, Susie.
Mm-hmm.
Just need to get somebody.
A great background drink.
Sorry, buddy.
Neat.
Mark, we've got you.
Yep.
Hey.
Hi there.
Hi. So waiting to see if Fate joins us, but we won't wait too long.
Okay.
So while we're waiting for folks, do we have a certain number, Susan, that we're waiting for to see that registered already?
So, 3,008.
No, I think we're just giving it a few minutes to let folks arrive.
Okay, sure. Well, first of all, oh, sunny day away from those old flurries. Folks been experiencing flurries where they are, because I certainly have out in East Preston. Can't wait for those flurries to be gone, but it's beautiful today. So welcome to the Narrative Project. We've been having a really, really good time connecting on here for the past few weeks. And I just wanted to let everyone know that we're basically today shining the light on like the way that the arts are helping people connect and stay connected and find inspiration like through these times. But before we begin, I just want to let us take a moment of silence for about a minute just to remember those who died this weekend and remember their families as well. So Greg, if you can just keep track of that minute for us, that would be really awesome. So just
Thanks, Tara. It's been a minute now.
thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. I don't know if Monis is on here. I'm just gonna, Monis, are you here? Okay, no, she's not here. So Monis was going to open us up with a bit of prayer. So this series has been about narrative, and a part of my everyday narrative is prayer. That's what I offer to community. That's what I offer to family, to overall folks in cleansing and in connecting. So I'm just going to say I'll just say a quick word, and we were going to offer a short song as well. So I won't sing the whole thing. I'll just be like a little bit because it doesn't make sense to sing it without her. This is okay. You can basically honor your connection the way that you normally would. I usually close my eyes and just kind of take in the surroundings around me. If there's anybody else on here, they're welcome to join me in prayer. I'll just take a few minutes to do that. Father, thank you very much for these series. Father God, thank you very much for just a connection to other people, Lord. There's a lot of people on here that are from other countries, Lord, and across the Maritimes. And I just thank you for keeping them safe, keeping them happy. We really are in this all together, and we know that we're going to come out of it with a new normal, Father, and just, I guess, caring more better for one another and having more consideration for the way that we operate around one another. And if we're sick, then we're keeping that to ourselves and not getting others sick, and just having that heightened consideration for our fellow man. Thank you. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. So the song that we were going to share is called Count on Me. And basically that's what we have been doing. We've been counting on essential workers and, that kind of thing, and counting on people to take care of us through this time, the government and whatnot. So it's just called Count on Me, and I'll just offer up a little bit, and we can move along. I'd like to introduce Mark. I don't see Fateh yet, but he'll be along. So count on me. Count on me through thick and thin, a friendship that will never end. When you are weak, I will be strong, helping you to carry on. Call on me, I will be there. Don't be afraid. Please believe me when I say, count on, you can count on me. And that's just all I'll do. Just know that people are there for you through thick and thin. So who I wanted to have on as a guest today is no stranger to the arts world, and specifically film. His name is Mr. Marc Almon, and I'll just give a few, I guess, background things about for Marc's background. He's a filmmaker and television producer and an arts advocate. And he was named one of the next Gen 20 young stars on the rise in Canada by The Hollywood Reporter. He's an amazing man and had invited me to be on the board of previously named the Link Art Center. And I think we have a new name, Lighthouse Art Center. Marc, you can correct me. And I'd like to turn it over to you to introduce a little bit more of your background, especially in terms of the arts.
Thank you, Tara. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here, and lovely hearing you sing. I can see the value in having these gatherings, and for us to come together and talk about what we're going through right now, which is a lot. This past week has been really hard for us in Nova Scotia. And of course, this crisis that the whole world is facing is taxing all of us. But it's also an opportunity not only to reflect on what we're feeling right now and going through right now, but also to talk about the future, and for us to really visualize what that future could look like, and how it can be a more creative and compassionate society, that we can play a part in building that society. And frankly, we have to move quickly. There's a lot of things that are wrong with our world, and so I believe the arts serve as a beacon for us, and it's an opportunity for us to show the way things could be, and to provide leadership, and to encourage others to think of people outside of themselves, and to see how they can fit into this hope for this better world that can emerge from this time of crisis and time of reflection.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess maybe to tell a little more about my background, I'm a film producer and an arts advocate. I kind of got an arts advocacy in a surprising manner. I've always felt very strongly about stepping up and being a part of the community, and helping in organizing, others, and finding ways in which we can be stronger together. I was chair of the Atlantic Filmmakers Cooperative in the past, and I helped organize a filmmaking society at King's College in my early days that played a crucial role in developing my skills, not only as a film producer, but also as sort of a community organizer. And then in 2014, I became chair of what would become Screen Nova Scotia, an organization I co-founded with a number of other concerned filmmakers. At that time, we were getting intelligence that the province was considering making changes to the tax credit program, which sort of provided the underpinning for the film industry in Nova Scotia. And since the film industry is such an important part of the creative economy, it really is a foundational tool for supporting our creative economy. And in 2015, those fears proved to be well-founded, and the government attempted to cut funding to the film tax credit, and they also shut down Film and Creative Industries Nova Scotia, which is a Crown corporation designed to be an advocate for and to provide support for not just the film industry, but as well the wider creative community in Nova Scotia. And really what happened at that moment was, in that time frame, which was exactly 5 years ago, was that we saw the power of our community coming together and resisting these changes and saying to government, no, you've not sufficiently consulted us, and this will be devastating to us. You have to reconsider your plans. And what happened in that circumstance, I think we should all take some pride in, for those of us who participated, was that a majority government that was in the midst of making some very tough decisions regarding their budget, did agree to sit down and work out a compromise with us. And the end result was the the Nova Scotia Film and Television Production Incentive Fund and the Digital Media Tax Credit, which saved hundreds and hundreds of media jobs in Nova Scotia and really allowed for us to survive. Now, the film industry since that time period has struggled because when you make major changes like that to these programs, that can send a signal to the wider world that this is not a stable place to do business. And so a lot of people have been working very hard to rebuild that confidence here. And one of the things that I found myself in a position to do was to work with some partners in developing a new creative hub in the former World Trade and Convention Center. The name of the company that I founded with my partner Rob Power is Culture Link CIC. It's one of the very first community interest companies ever established in Canada. And what that means is that we're dedicated to the community, and that 60% of our profits have to go back to the community. And that also we have to, our assets remain basically with the community forever and ever. And we founded as well in collaboration with Tara and a number of other key figures in the arts community, a nonprofit organization that worked as a direct partner in what we were trying to do. And we were successful collectively in raising $14 million to convert the World Trade and Convention Center into a creative hub. We've completed phase 1 of the project, which is a television studio. That will be the new home of This Hour's 20 Minutes. And when, they'll be using it for about 7 months of the year. And then we intend for the rest of the year for it to be made available to independent film productions. And so we'll talk a little more about that later if people have interest. And then phase 2 of the project, which we'll be starting construction on later this summer, God willing, includes a performance hall, a cinema, a dance studio, a lobby bar, and an office space for cultural nonprofits and for-profit startups in the creative sector. So I feel like I've been really blessed to be part of these efforts to respond to threats to our creative community, and also for us to be stepping forward and saying, no, like we can move past these challenges, and we can find ways to thrive again by working together. And that's very much my mission, my personal mission, is to empower storytellers and change makers to find ways in which we can work together to create a better world for creators and artists. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Marc. Appreciate that. So we're in a few minutes, we're going to break off into groups and have about 7 minutes each just to talk about some grounding personal experience, times in your life. And so I based this talk on an article, and we can share the link later. I'm not sure if people got the link. And it was basically a couple of quotes from it was, artists are getting us through COVID-19 and never question their value again. So one of the main things I want to get to is, what do we think about, post-COVID, where the arts are taking us, and then like the value of creatives and artists and whatnot. And so she also says this lockdown should be a wake-up call to all of us who are leaning on creatives now. Arts and cultures needs to be an unwavering national priority, and which is very true. So I'd like to just, if maybe Greg, if you could put in a question for us in the chat, tell us about a time when you stepped up because you believed in the value of the arts. What happened, given how the arts have been so important for healing, for connection, for those kinds of things during this time? What is your wildest dream for post-COVID-19?
She said, what is your wildest dream for post-COVID?
Okay. Sarah, can you just say it again? I'm going to get everyone into rooms now. Can you just give that question again?
The question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just tell us about a time when you stepped up because you believed in the value of arts. What happened, given how the arts have been so important during this time? What is your wildest dream for post-COVID-19?
Got it. Great. Thank you. I see Susan just put it in there. Okay, I'm going to open up the rooms now. So we groups of 3 or 4 people in each room, and if you have any questions at any time, you can leave the room, and I'll be in the main session here. You can come back and ask me questions if you need to, and just look at your chat for that guiding question that Susan has copied and pasted into there.
Thank you, Susan.
And the rooms are going to be open for 21 minutes, and it should be about three or 4 people per room, so either 5 minutes or 7 minutes per person to chat. See you soon.
Hi, Susan. Oh, sorry, still. All I do is laugh and grin, having some fun on this call today. Thank you, Greg. So we're going to go back, everybody, in our little groups, and I think the different people this time around. But we want to just ask you, what struck you? What touched or moved you? What insights are you going to take with you? What challenged you? Just maybe in remembering some things that were happening there. I know I was talking a lot about all 3 levels of government. And are there any commitments calling you to thinking about arts post-COVID? So we're going to go, that's going to be in groups of about 3 or 4 for 5 minutes each for about 15 minutes.
And Tara, can you just repeat the guiding question again, just for everybody?
Yeah, sure. So what struck you? What touched or moved you? What insights are you taking with you? What challenged you? Are there any commitments calling you for arts post-COVID?
Fantastic. Thanks for just saying it again. Helps me sink into it. All right, so I'm going to open up the rooms. It'll be with new folks again, and and same amount of time, I believe, for 20 minutes again, Tara.
About 5 minutes
15,
each, and total of 15 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, here we go.
Hello.
Hello. There we go. I know Mark, but I don't know. Have we met before?
I don't think so. I'm in Maine.
Oh, okay. What brings you here?
I learned of this through Andrea.
Uh-huh.
You said you were in Maine?
In Maine, yes.
Cool.
Andrea Curry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Is
Is this
the person that,
is this
you're
your
the
first time? Or?
no, it's my third, fourth.
Oh, okay.
I've been coming since it started. Is this the third time?
Fourth.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I've been here for each one.
Oh, that's great.
And you're the person that sends out the emails, right?
I am. Yeah.
I recognize the name. I really appreciate it. It's kind of neat too, because it says you've been invited. I like the way it's worded. It feels so welcoming.
Oh, good. Good. And Mark and I have the same last name by chance.
And that's something. Well, if you lived in Maine, you might have the same last name as I do.
Oh,
There's
there's a lot of you.
a lot of diners.
Huh.
My first thought was just everyone has a different perspective on what art is. And I talked about music, and somebody else in the group hadn't really thought about music as the art. That was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
that's been my experience with art, has been mainly through music.
Do you sing or play?
Yeah, not really. Much more working with children, trying to bring our music into schools. Also, I was talking about bringing music into hospitals, how much that's been helpful to children that have been sick and may never come out. And then it made me think about what we could do for, there are thousands and thousands of people going into hospitals right now that have something that aren't going to come out, and no one can go see them, and how helpful and music can be. Be ways, maybe through Zoom or whatnot, to bring that to them live. Not necessarily
Great idea.
Post, certainly, but right now, yeah, I have a friend who does this. She goes into the hospitals and plays and sings, and I have a dear friend whose son is basically has no quality of life left, has nothing to do with this, and he can't go to hospitals to have any thing done to help him because it would be too risky. And so I try to, I sing him on the phone and this kind of thing. It just brings so much joy to the children.
Lovely. Well, in my last call, I was on the call with one person in my last room, and she sings. So what you said just reminded me of what she was talking about. Because on Monday, she said at the end of the day, she called this friend and they did toning together, which was just voicing, which I had not heard of, as a way of, for about 20 minutes, just to process how they were feeling about everything. So
You see what toning is?
Well, I guess just singing different tones, no words, but making, vocalizing and then responding back and forth and kind of sharing that way.
And it sounds like what I did in yoga this morning.
Oh, yeah. And she also talked about during this time of drawing chalk mandalas on the sidewalk. And I just, and then just doing kind of free form drawings. She showed me one. And I was so envious because I never think of things like that or do things like that. And so it, and I can't at my age make excuses in terms of my education. I could have done something about that by now. But I can trace it back, to early education of being told that I had to get it right, and that, so art became so kind of anxiety provoking for me that I just left it totally behind. But then realizing, I still valued it. And so our kids, when they went to school, were in a very art immersed curriculum. And I just think that's so wholesome, that's so healthy. So anyway, those are just some things that came up.
Well, something that came up for me is one lady was talking about even like with history in school, there are ways to bring arts into learning, drawing and visuals and things. And my mind just went completely blank. I just completely lost where I was. And we talked a lot about how time is spent in school, and it reminded me of I grew up in Maine, and I learned history through Maine school, and my daughter grew up in Virginia with me, and the historical perspective that she learned was completely different than mine, and so our minds were shaped to believe that that whoever wrote that history book and taught that history class, that was their perspective, and this is the way my mind was shaped, and this is what I was told to believe. with art, there's so much more freedom in allowing children to grow up believing and thinking for themselves, having their own feelings and emotions through art, and so much more powerful and useful overall, and to spiritual growth and just being comfortable with themselves and being able to make their way in this difficult world without feeling judged and being judged. Just a completely different way of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one thing I've been struck by in terms of these sessions is how many creative people there are, and you know, this has been an occasion to kind of, I mean, they've been there all along, I guess, but we didn't know that they're there, and so I think that's been really fantastic, and there's a richness here that you don't even know is there. Another interesting thing, I came across this article talking about comics and how useful they are in telling stories, I guess for two reasons. One is that you can, through comics, you can pretty easily make abstract things concrete. Like they gave this example of, in terms of climate change, someone did this comic drawing balloons which said CO2 on them, and that they were kind of rising up. You could kind of visualize carbon dioxide in a more kind of concrete way. And the other thing is that comic books, I mean, usually have, there's a lot of personal storytelling. So, you know, there's people involved, and there's this kind of emotional aspect that you can more easily identify with. And so I think that both aspects are really interesting. And I guess there's a third one, which is that the medium, I mean, there's so many different mediums in which comics can be used. They can be static, they can be animated, you can have them on video, you can have them on paper, and it's kind of relatively easy. So anyway, that kind of struck me as a kind of, especially when you're talking about drawing sand mandalas on sidewalks and chalk. I mean, it can be as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
The kids around here in this community have been doing that. A lot of rainbows, variations of rainbows, and it's really beautiful to see as we walk, distancing ourselves along the streets and sidewalks and seeing the creativity, and putting posters in windows, posters that can bring in a smile, share some joy that way. The other piece to talk about was my grandson likes to play the trumpet, and the lessons just became unaffordable after our entire school year. There are ways that we're trying to, within the community, find ways to get instruments into the schools, just donating used instruments. So there are definitely ways to bring that medium of art into the school without it being too costly.
Someone told me, I had not known this, that you can borrow musical instruments for the library here. So,
Really?
yeah.
That's fantastic.
And the libraries aren't open now, but
but they will be.
Will be, yeah.
One of the questions is, are there any commitments calling you? And I don't know if it's a commitment yet, but it's a wish to develop some kind of arts practice, creative practice.
I played the guitar when I was younger, and I also played the flute, and since this happened, it's the other thing we talked about, having so much downtime. Myself and everyone around me, I noticed are getting more creative, spending more time in creating something, even if it's just in the kitchen, creating dishes. But I've been getting back into playing my guitar and my flute again. I hadn't done that in years.
Yeah, I wonder if anything will actually shift through all of this in terms of the arts after COVID. But we don't know what after COVID, or if there is an after COVID, or if the next bad thing's going to come along at this rate. So, but
yeah, some of our schools are talking January now.
Are they really? Wow.
Universities and.
Mm-hmm. Well, everybody's set up now to do stuff online.
Yeah, my work, I'm a behavioral health professional. I work with kids on the autistic spectrum, and And we work with thousands of kids throughout the state, and of course, all the services have been completely halted and just torn from them. We're trying to utilize Zoom, but it's difficult for a child to try to take care of his academics through a Zoom call when it's difficult as it is. But anyway, they're in close touch with the governor and the CDC about what's happening, because so many lives have been affected by us not being able to work. And our date is moved to September now, before we can even go back in homes, let alone schools. So it keeps getting pushed back. Yeah. Is there an after? When is that going to be? No idea.
Who knows? But we are learning the arts as a way to cope.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and not just cope, but flourish.
It's just so much more enriching than anything I learned in history, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, in previous breakout, actually Duncan Abada was part of my group, and he was talking about how, in terms of food, which is his thing, but a lot of people are more into food. I mean, there's always stories interweaved with food. Like he was talking about this bread, and people telling the story of how they learned to make this bread and how it was, and a lot of people working with sourdough now, and so there's a sense of culture, which is both stuff we need, but also stuff that binds us together and has some kind of rich societal matrix around it too. I find that really interesting. And some of that seems to be more emphasized now. And again, the question is, can we keep this going forward?
So getting back to our roots and what our culture means to us. And
yeah.
That's powerful.
Just notice there's a little clock on the top.
Right, that's new, but I guess that's helpful.
It is. I wonder how that.
Can you see it? I can't.
I'm on a.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Top right on the computer. Yeah. 20 seconds. So I hope we create a new normal. I mean, that's. I think it'll be necessary, and we'll be smarter animals, actually, so to speak.
Yeah, and more creative, more joyful.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
I mean, art represents joy for me in a way. Okay, now we have the next countdown.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Thank you, Susan.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you both. Thank
See you
very
back
much.
there. Nice to meet you, Kim.
Yes, you as well, both of you. Thank you. Really enjoying this so much. I look forward to this, all week. It's something that it's highlighting my week. I really do.
Nice.
Meeting some incredible people, and it's really opening me up, just expanding me as a person and my thinking.
Yeah, it's nice to have the cross-border because we are adjacent, so to speak.
Yes.
Same bio region. Okay.
Hopefully there'll come a day when we can cross the border and visit.
Yay, I'm always coming back, laughing and smiling and grinning and going on from talking to folks. Hope everyone else is having as much fun as I'm having. It's beautiful. So at this time, we're going to reflect on the last hour conversation, take a moment to just think about where today's conversation has taken you and what have they sparked in you? What are they calling you to do? And when you're ready, just kind of share in the chat what comes up for you. And we can do that in silence for about maybe 5 minutes, three to 5 minutes. Greg can let us know.
Sounds good. Start a timer.
Okay. Just everybody type in what your thoughts are, reflections. Mark, are you still here? I know he might have had to leave early.
He's here. He's just
Okay.
he's just unmuted.
Sorry, I have
No.
trouble finding the mute button. My apologies. It was all the dialogue
No
coming
worries.
from folks, and it was covering up the mute button.
No. So
yeah.
maybe
Sorry.
some reflection.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have to say this is my first time participating in one of these How We Thrive, dialogues, the narrative project, and I just find it utterly fascinating and such a neat opportunity to go. I also never done this breakout room arrangement, so neat to be able to actually interact with just a handful of people and get to know them in that short period of time, and and discuss some really weighty topics. What I took away from the dialogue that we had was that I think we're missing catharsis in our lives, and that a lot of people in our society are struggling with to grapple with emotions, and also with the concept of death, which is really something we just could keep on running away from, and particularly the issue about emotions. Because that creates a really small space in which for people to process their emotions about their life and their sort of position, it leads to a lot of there's a lack of dialogue, and as we see, like with this terrible murder that the series of murders that happened this past weekend, when people don't talk about their emotions, it can lead to some really terrible things. And in fact, a lot of times people end up expressing anger in place of other emotions, and that's really a dangerous situation. So art has the opportunity to provide catharsis for people, and so that's really important for us to find ways to help elevate art as a form of therapy. I think we also need to reassert local control. So one of the things we talked about was a virtual kitchen party and how successful that has been as a platform. And so one of the real problems we're facing is this consolidation of power at a global level and also at a national level. So in the case of a global level, we have Facebook and Netflix and Google that are really kind of dominating everything, and we're having this highly polished products, but it creates a lot less space for local expression and local opportunities. So we need to figure out a way to try and champion local creators and to help nurture their careers in a way that doesn't leave us reliant on these huge multinational corporations. And then the last thing I found really intriguing was the idea of a basic guaranteed income as being this great equalizer, this opportunity to allow for artists to have some income coming in as they establish their careers. But more importantly, it also provides support for everybody, and maybe would allow people to start thinking more creatively and expressing themselves more creatively and appreciating the arts, and the importance of the arts, because they wouldn't be so they'd be in just a much more secure place. So that's my takeaways from the conversations.
That's amazing. Thank you, Marc, so much. Is there anybody else? We have a bit of time there.
I'm sorry, it's Corey Mullins here. I'm wondering, is there any way to get a copy of the chat log? Is that possible?
Most likely, I believe Susan is taping it, recording it, and Greg, are
Yeah,
you as well?
we'll copy everything from the chat and be sharing that out after the call.
Yeah, there are these brilliant ideas zooming by, and I want to revisit them. And
oh yes, we do gather that up afterwards. So you're definitely welcome to all the information.
Thank you.
And
I'm wondering,
in the chat window, there's 3 little dots, and if you click on that, there's an option to save the chat, so you can just save it right to your computer as well, right? If you don't want to wait for it to be sent out after.
Oh, great.
I'd like to, if Ariel wouldn't mind, talking about the fund, and I think someone else has mentioned, Dawn, the living wage. I'm really interested in that because that one of the things that I was reflecting upon is the fact that the CR or CERB, who it's available to now in the gig economy, Delvina had brought that up, Bernard, and it would be interesting to see something like that be continued, you know, for folks that are part of the gig economy to have this kind of living wage. So maybe if either, I think it was Ariella or Dawn, could maybe elaborate a little bit on those living wages.
Hi, it's Ariella. There's there's a lot of groups and movement and discussion across Canada around guaranteed livable wage or livable income. I just finished a documentary film where Senator Kim Pate was part of it, and she's one of the senators who's put that at the front of her agenda. Certainly, people could connect with her. I think this time has been fostering more communication about that because of the emergency benefits from the government. And I think seeing as artists, I think having an income that's not always directly tied to a project or an output, having time to think about ideas and not just like quickly follow them. I think it also, I'm hoping we'll have, you know, I think we're all reflecting on that, and that there's something that's really beneficial to that as artists, apart from, you know, the importance of that for general population and citizenship and democracy to work. I think as a filmmaker, I think I'm hoping that this whole time of slowing down and being able to not just have to chase ideas and, you know, follow people around will actually change the, you know, what we're consuming on television or the internet, sort of pushing us away from more of a reality TV style of consumeristic, you know, shallow, wanting to just follow people and see the extremes of what's happening, to sort of a more slowed down, thoughtful, philosophical, investigative, ideas based, you know, output. And that's what I'm hoping for. And it's all kind of tied to me, income and how what we have to follow to get that income.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Ariella. And I think Kevin, where is it? Has a huge amount. Oh, Mark, I cannot pronounce your last name. I know it's the same as Susan's. Are you guys brother, sister, husband, wife? What's going on there? Same last name.
There's a story there.
What's the story?
It's not mine to tell.
Would you like to share that? I don't know what that seems interesting too. Unconditional basic income. Is he there? Mark, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, well, you know, the idea of unconditional basic income, I mean, that's been kind of evolving slowly over the years, but suddenly, just over the last few months, I think it's become much more prominent just because of the catastrophe we're in, where it's a good idea that somehow becomes more obviously good at this point. And I think one of the best ways to think about it is not so much that it's like charity or helping the poor, but that it's raising the water level for all boats and not just the millionaire yachts. And that our society actually is producing a lot of thrivability, a lot of resources and goodness. It's just not evenly distributed. And this is simply an easy way to make it more available so that everyone, it's like we don't think about paying for going to grammar school. And so it's the same idea, just a little bit more. And so everyone has a better starting point. And then they can, of course, do creative stuff. And we know that people do creative stuff even in spite of being poor. And this enables that more, and also enables people to stay at home, take care of the children if they need be, and then also to supplement that with work and make more income on top of that, but at least have the security that, in the ups and downs, there'll be a kind of basic level that lets them survive and then be creative on top of that. So.
That's amazing. Thanks so much, Mark. And I just saw that Duncan put in something about the basic income. If folks want to tune into that, I'll be interested in that as well. Let me see here. Oh, it's on YouTube. Okay, so it's on YouTube. So yeah, so just piggybacking and taking it back to the arts overall, yeah, I believe it is definitely going to change. Post-COVID, things are going to change. There's no two ways about it, especially with the income and how the government is going to looking at supporting through the grants. So I also saw through the Canada Council that they have a new grant for helping organizations take their organizations digitally. So they're seeing it, they have no choice but to see it. It's right there in front of your face, the way that we're having to live and be and create and art, nowadays. So are there any other final words before we move into next week? Final reflections? No? Well, thank you, everybody. You've been amazing. I hope that you've been inspired with this talk. And I just wanted to quickly mention, if anybody else wants to add in, that, let's see, Jason, I'm not sure if Jason's the host of that one, I think so, but we're going to be talking about our relationship to food. So a few times on our calls, I've been talking about my family, my cousin who lives next door to me and actually has a farm, and we've been bartering, I make natural products, so I've been giving her shampoo, she's been giving me eggs, and it's been quite amazing. And then our cousin lives in the back by the lake, so we've all been talking about, well, she already has a farm, so he and I were talking about planting, building a greenhouse, and I'm planting strawberries and sugar peas and all this thing. So just talking about where our food has taken us, and because every time I go out for supplies, it's still jam-packed at the stores and whatnot, and it just makes me wonder, like we're all running to these stores, like we have to find other ways to feed ourselves. So yeah, that's what we'll be talking about next week. And Susan, feel free to jump in if you want to add anything.
I'll just add one thing, Tara. I think it's in 2 weeks. I don't have the May.
Don't worry, folks. Stay tuned. You'll catch the information as it comes in.
Exactly.
We can probably finish up early, then we're pretty much done. But thank you so much to everybody. Thank you so much. And just any kind of art that you intake, just love on it and love on those creatives. And I'm attending on Facebook a concert by Kim's niece and Delvina Bernard's daughter. I think all their girls are performing. It's this Sunday, so if you want to pop onto Facebook and check that out, they're doing a live concert online. Take care, everybody. Much love.
And send us your feedback. I just put a link in the chat box to a feedback form. Thank you. Next session is May 7th.
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara.
Thank you, Miss.